Hi, I'm Zadie. My sister told me not to come to her graduation because I was just a plumber. But what stung more wasn't the words. It was the years I spent paying for her tuition, her rent, her books, while she pretended I didn't exist. And then I found out she forged my name, just to keep the money flowing. They say family is everything, but what happens when everything means you give and they erase you anyway? What would you do if the people you built up tried to delete you from their success? Would you stay quiet? Or would you finally say, enough? The call came just as I was backing my truck out of a client's driveway. It had been a long day, 3 clogged sinks, a busted water heater, and a baby shower where I fixed the bathroom faucet in heels because I was already there. My hands still smelled like PVC glue, and my boots tracked more mud than I cared to admit. But I felt good. Tired, sure, but the kind of tired that comes from honest work. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I glanced down. Valora. That name used to make me smile. I parked, wiped my hands on a towel draped over the seat, and answered. Hey, what's up? There was a pause. Just air. Then her voice, careful, distant, too smooth. Zadie, I've been meaning to call you. My stomach clenched. She only used that tone when something was about to be taken away. Everything okay? I asked. She hesitated. So, Dorian's parents are flying in for graduation. His whole family, actually. It's kind of a big deal. I stayed quiet, waiting for the point. I just think, she said, slower now, with everything going on, maybe it's best if you skip the ceremony this year. It took me a second to understand. You don't want me there. No, she rushed. That's not what I said. It's just, they're very traditional and formal, and you know how you can come off. How I can what? I asked. I'm just saying, showing up in your uniform, covered in grease and all, might not give the best impression. I pulled over. My heart didn't pound. It just dropped. Quietly, like a tool falling from a shelf. So, I said carefully, after 3 years of tuition payments, rent coverage, and book stipends, you're embarrassed that your plumber sister might make your boyfriend's parents uncomfortable? Zadie, don't twist this. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just finally hearing it. Silence. Then she said it, the sentence that didn't even try to pretend anymore. I just don't want them to think we're from a blue-collar family. There it was, clear as day, the truth she'd been packaging in politeness for months. I hung up without another word. By the time I got home, the sun had dipped behind the hills. I dropped my keys on the counter, kicked off my boots, and sat at the edge of the couch for a while, still in my work shirt, still smelling faintly of copper pipe and detergent. I didn't move. The TV played on mute, background noise I didn't hear. My phone buzzed again. It was Ramona. She rarely texted unless it was a holiday or someone died. I just overheard your mom and Valora talking. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but Valora said having you at the ceremony would throw off the photos. I'm really sorry, Z. I stared at that message for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't type anything back. I deleted it, not because it didn't hurt, but because it hurt enough to remember without having to look at it again. That night, I lay on the couch without turning on a light. No tears. Just this quiet weight pressing on my chest. Not panic, just stillness. And beneath that stillness, something else. Forming. Not rage. Not yet. Something colder. Resignation. I'd built my life on fixing what was broken. Pipes, heaters, toilets, and sometimes people. But for the first time, I realized that no matter how many leaks I sealed, some things were never meant to be held together. I closed my eyes. My hands ached, my back throbbed, and all I could hear was her voice. I just don't want them to think we're from a blue-collar family. She didn't just uninvite me. She erased me like I was a typo in her success story. I spent the next couple of days doing what I always did, working. It helped keep my mind from going places it didn't need to linger. When I'm bent over a sink or snaking a drain, the world quiets down. There's a rhythm to fixing things. You find the problem, Get your hands dirty and make it right. That Friday afternoon, I was in the back restroom of a small diner off Yale Avenue, replacing a leaky faucet. The owner, an older man named Carl, always paid in cash and sent me home with a slice of pie. I was wiping down the sink when my phone buzzed on the edge of the counter. Notifications rolled in, one after another, like raindrops on a windshield. Facebook. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Right at the top of my feed, posted by my cousin Jill, was a photo that stopped me cold. It was Valora. Her, Dorian, Mom, Uncle Ron, Aunt Delia, everyone. A long table dressed in white linen, candles lit, champagne flutes raised. A small black banner over the picture read, "Family Graduation Dinner." Family. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't even mentioned. I stared at the photo for what felt like hours. My gloves were still on. The wrench rested by the sink, forgotten. When people stop saying your name long enough, you start to wonder if they ever really meant to remember it. I packed up my tools, thanked Carl with a half smile, and got in the truck. The diner's neon sign flickered in the rear view as I pulled away. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't look. I drove until the sun dipped low enough to throw golden stripes across the windshield. I didn't know where I was going. I just didn't want to go home yet. Eventually, I found myself parked outside a little park near my old elementary school. The benches were peeling. The water fountain hadn't worked since the Obama administration. I sat there, engine ticking as it cooled. And I remembered Valora's first year at college, how I helped her move into that tiny dorm room with the cinder block walls and squeaky bed frame. She cried the first night, and I ordered Thai food just to distract her. I paid her deposit, bought her books, made sure she didn't need to worry about work so she could focus. She used to call me her rock, but that rock didn't fit the photos anymore. Somewhere between that dorm room and that dinner table, I became the kind of family they edited out. My phone rang. I expected silence. Instead, it was Mom. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal. "Honey," she said, sounding as if she'd been preparing for this conversation all day. "Let's not make this into something it's not." That sentence alone told me everything I needed to know. "Valora just wanted to make a good impression with Dorian's family," she continued. "It's important to her future. You understand, right?" I didn't answer. "You know how you are," she added. "Excuse me? I'm not saying anything bad, I'm just, you show up in boots and a uniform, and, well, not everyone gets it." I let that sit in the silence between us. Then I said, "Do you remember who's been paying for her schooling?" She sighed like I was exhausting her. "We all chip in where we can, sweetheart." It took everything in me not to laugh. "No, Mom, you don't. You've never sent a check. Not for tuition, not for rent, not even for books." "That's not fair," she said quickly, like I'd hit a nerve. "I've given plenty, my time, my support." "Okay," I said, cutting her off gently. "Thanks for calling." She started to say something else, but I ended the call. There was no point anymore. I sat in the truck a while longer, watching the sky shift from amber to bruised purple. The park lights buzzed on, casting dim halos across the cracked pavement. That night, I went home, showered the day off me, and poured myself a glass of water. I stood in the kitchen, the overhead light humming faintly, and pulled open the drawer where I kept my files. Invoices, receipts, bank statements. I laid them out on the table, one by one. Valora's tuition payments, her apartment rent, even the down payment for her bar prep course. All under my name. If I didn't have a seat at their table, maybe it was time they stopped eating off my plate. The screen glowed in the dim kitchen, the cursor blinking like it was waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. I closed the folder, stood up slowly, and turned off the light. The next morning, I got up early. Earlier than usual. The kind of early that doesn't need an alarm because your body's already too wired to rest. I made coffee, not because I needed it, but because ritual keeps your hands busy while your head catches up. I was going over invoices for a leak I'd fixed the day before when it came through. Subject: immediate action required, tuition payment pending. I didn't even flinch. There it was. Valora's name, her student account, the balance due, the gentle reminder that without my financial support, her graduation was at risk. I clicked through the portal. The entire history stared back at me. 3 years of transactions, housing fees, textbook reimbursements, meal plans, even that bar prep registration fee. All tied to my name. I wasn't a footnote. I was the foundation. And yet, I wasn't family enough to be in a photo. No one called to say thank you. No one emailed to confirm I was still good to cover this last payment. But the system sure knew who to ping when money was due. I leaned back in my chair. The sun was just beginning to stretch across the living room rug. Dust hung in the air, caught in that golden hush. For a brief second, I let myself sit with it. Not angry, not hurt. Just clear. That clarity didn't last long. 2 days later, I came home to an envelope wedged under my front door. No stamp, no return address. Just my name scribbled in what looked like Valora's rushed handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Not an invite, not a program, not even the school's logo. Just, if you still want to come, there might be room near the back. No, dear Zadie. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just that line, tossed like a bone to a dog that had stopped barking. If Valora thought that piece of paper fixed things, she didn't know me at all. I set it on the counter and stared at it for a long while. Then I folded it in half and slid it into the trash without saying a word. I didn't need a performance seat. I wasn't there for the act anymore. That night, I logged back into the university portal. I clicked through every document I had access to, payment dates, billing statements, confirmations. I downloaded them all. Then I created a folder on my desktop. Valora, Records. I wasn't doing this to be petty. I was doing this to be ready. People lie. Screenshots don't. The next morning, I brewed my coffee again, this time without shaking hands. I took a breath, opened my laptop, and went back to the payment portal. At the top of the screen, a red banner read, "Your saved payment method is active." Under it was my card, last 4 digits, expiration date, still tied to her. I hovered over the option. Remove. A confirmation window appeared. Are you sure you want to remove this as a saved payment method? This action cannot be undone. Funny how the system gives you a warning before you cut ties. More than my family ever did. I clicked yes. The screen flickered for a second, then cleared. Just like that, I was out. Off the hook. No more hidden lifeline. No more quiet obligation. I closed the laptop gently and took another sip of coffee. Let her figure it out like the rest of us. The morning after I removed myself from Valora's account, I woke before my alarm. It wasn't anxiety, it was clarity. I poured my coffee, opened the window just a crack, and let the air roll in. Outside, the world was just starting to stir. Dogs barking faintly in the distance, a delivery truck rumbling past the corner, tires crunching against loose gravel. I took a long sip, set the mug down, and reached for my phone. 8:07 a.m. Valora. Incoming call. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Then again. By the 5th time, I figured I might as well hear what she had to say. The voicemail clicked on. Static, then her voice. Hi, frantic. Zadie, what did you do? My account is frozen. I can't register for finals. I can't print my gown. Are you serious right now? I hit delete. A 6th call came in. I blocked the number. Not out of anger, but preservation. I wasn't lashing out. I was holding on to the only thing she hadn't taken from me, my quiet. The silence didn't last long. 10 minutes later, I checked my inbox. It was full. Mom, Aunt Delia, Uncle Ron. Subject lines like, "Why would you do this?" Just talk to her. This isn't the time for games. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. There was a rhythm to them, each one blaming me, none of them asking what Valora had done to put us here in the first place. I created a new folder on my desktop, Receipts, Screenshots, voicemails, emails. No commentary, no revenge plan, just evidence. Not for court, not for Facebook, just for me. To remember I wasn't imagining any of it. That's what they do, isn't it? Make you feel crazy for finally setting a boundary they never thought you'd dare. I poured another cup of coffee, walked it to the window, and stood quietly while the sun spread across my neighbor's lawn. I could hear a lawnmower starting up 2 houses down. Another voicemail slipped through. This one from Valora again. Her voice cracked halfway through. "You've made me look horrible. Do you even care what this makes me look like? I'm supposed to walk that stage in front of Dorian's family, and now I look like I can't manage my own life." That was the tell, right there. Not, "I'm scared." Not, "I messed up." Not even, "I need help." Just, "This makes me look bad." I didn't save that one either. I whispered to myself, "There it is." It's strange what breaks you, not the yelling, not the betrayal. It's the realization that you were only ever valuable until your existence got inconvenient. Later that afternoon, Mom called. I let it ring. She left a voicemail. "Zadie, I know you're upset, but this is your sister's future. You've always been the strong one. You've always picked up where others fall short. Don't let pride ruin what we've built." I sat with that. What we've built. I'd built it. Me. My paychecks, my weekends, my overtime hours, my skipped vacations, my frozen grocery bills while Valora ordered takeout 3 nights a week in law school. She built a narrative, I built the foundation. And now that foundation had finally crumbled. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table, watching the light dim around me. I opened a blank message, typed out a single line to my mother, then hovered over send. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then pressed it. I didn't walk away from the family. I just stopped carrying it alone. Then I muted the thread. All of it. The calls, the texts, the guilt-ridden voicemails. I muted them all. For the first time in a long time, the noise stopped. Not just around me, but in me. That night, I slept through without waking once. The next few days were strangely quiet. I kept my head down, took jobs that paid cash, and stayed off social media. I didn't avoid people. I just didn't feel like pretending. I went to work, came home, ate, slept. No small talk, no distractions. 4 days after I blocked them all, I was between clients, parked behind a bakery downtown, eating a cold sandwich in the driver's seat of my van. A notification popped up on my phone, a tag on a Facebook photo. That was strange. I hadn't been tagged in anything in weeks. Curious, I tapped it. It was Jill again, my cousin. She'd posted an album, grateful for the ones who made this possible. The cover photo showed Valora, standing in front of the university's graduation banner, surrounded by family. Mom, Uncle Ron, Dorian, even Marla's church friend Teresa made the cut. I swiped through each image slowly, and then I saw it. One photo, taken at the graduation hall entrance, caught the edge of my shoulder, just the corner of my jacket. I remembered being nearby that day, dropping off paperwork for a plumbing permit 2 buildings over. I'd walked past the ceremony entrance without realizing she was already inside. In the edited version Jill posted, I was cropped out completely. No trace, no mention, no tag. They didn't just uninvite me. They erased me, as if I'd never existed in that part of her life at all. I locked my phone, set it down, and just sat there. Not angry, just hollow. Like someone had reached into a drawer and taken something I hadn't realized was still mine. A few minutes later, I pulled up to a client's house, a small 2-bedroom in a quiet cul-de-sac. I replaced a rusted kitchen valve and tightened a few fixtures in the laundry room. When I finished, I grabbed a coffee from the cafe around the corner and found a seat near the window. I was halfway through my drink when the next hit came. A comment on Jill's post. "Your parents must be so proud to have put her through law school. What a beautiful family." That was the one. I didn't reply. I didn't like it. I didn't start an argument. But I did get a direct message. It was from Lorna Reyes, Valora's old roommate during undergrad. We'd met once. I barely remembered her. Hi, Zadie. Random, I know. But wasn't it you who paid for all that? Just curious. She always said her parents covered everything. I stared at the message for a while. Then I typed back. Apparently, I was just the bank, not the story. Lorna didn't respond right away, but the message was seen, and that was enough. When I got home that evening, I opened my laptop, logged into my drive, and created a new folder. Proof, image erasure. Inside it, I saved the screenshots, photos, comments, the direct message. I didn't know what I planned to do with them. I just needed to keep them. Needed to remind myself this happened, that I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't in my head. When the truth makes people uncomfortable, they don't argue it. They just crop it. I decided I would stop trying to be seen and start preserving what I knew. The next morning, I was back at work, replacing a faulty water heater, when my phone buzzed again. Another tag. This time, someone had reshared the album and mentioned me directly. I ignored it. But I knew Valora wouldn't. Later that afternoon, the message came through. Why are you trying to ruin this for me? It was so perfectly Valora. No, hi. No, can we talk? Not even a fake smile emoji. Just accusation, projection. I typed a single reply. I haven't said a word. And I hadn't. But others had started asking, quietly, curiously, just enough to make the image crack. She couldn't stop that. And for the first time, she couldn't control what people whispered behind her back. After Valora's message, I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have a response, but because silence had finally started to work in my favor. It was a strange kind of power, watching someone used to control finally unravel when the script didn't go her way. 3 days passed. I focused on my plumbing jobs, got home early enough to cook real meals, and even cleaned out the garage. It felt like reclaiming space, not just in my house, but in my life. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, just as I finished a job replacing old pipes in a rental near the fairgrounds, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I let those go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. Hello? Hi, is this Ms. Zadie Callow? A young woman's voice asked, formal but unsure. Yes. This is Carrie from the University of Tulsa Billing Department. I wanted to follow up regarding your removal as a financial sponsor on a student account. I closed the van door and sat down on the driver's seat. I'm listening. Well, we received confirmation that your payment method was removed on file, but we also had a new authorization submitted under your name again. My jaw tightened. Excuse me? It's a recent form, about 48 hours ago. Same name, same information. But the signature doesn't appear to match prior documentation. And, well, we're required to verify before reactivating anything. I was quiet for a second. Can you send me a copy? Of course, she replied. Just for internal record keeping? No, I said flatly. For mine. I hung up, parked outside a coffee shop, and pulled out my laptop. The email arrived minutes later. Attached was a scanned PDF, an official form authorizing future tuition-related payments. It had my name, my address, my last 4 digits of the account, everything identical to what I'd submitted years before. But the signature wasn't mine. It was an attempt at imitation, close enough to fool a glance, but I knew my own handwriting, like I knew the lines on my palm. I didn't slam the laptop shut. I didn't pace the floor. I didn't scream. I printed the document at home, slid it into a file sleeve, and placed it next to the stack of receipts and bank statements I'd already been compiling. Payment logs, digital transfers, screenshots of Valora thanking Mom and Dad for their support on social media. The facade was cracking, and now I had the paperwork to prove it. You don't have to yell to be dangerous, I murmured. You just have to have documentation. That night, I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my phone, and called my mother. She picked up fast, too fast. Zadie, honey. I need you to tell Valora to stop using my name. There was a beat. She's under a lot of pressure. She didn't mean anything malicious by it. You do realize this is fraud, right? I said, keeping my voice even. She submitted my financial information without my consent. She's scared, Mom said quickly. She just wants to finish school. You pulling away now? It'll ruin everything she's worked for. She already ruined it, and now she's dragging me down with her. Zadie, come on. Be reasonable. You know she's not trying to hurt you. She forged my name, Mom, on a legal form. Don't stand there and pretend it's a misunderstanding. She sighed. Don't ruin her future over a piece of paper. I ended the call, not out of rage, out of clarity. I didn't owe them a debate. By the time the sun had gone down, I had written a short formal notice. Notice of fraudulent authorization. Zadie Callow, beneath it. I listed the date of the forgery, attached the form, and included a statement of disassociation from Valora Quinn's financial account, along with supporting records. I sent the email directly to the university's financial aid office, CCing the compliance department. No dramatic subject line, no long explanation, just facts, just truth. Once sent, I sat back, finished the cup of tea I'd forgotten on the counter, and turned off the lights. I wasn't trying to ruin Valora's life, but I was no longer going to let her keep rewriting mine. I wasn't her villain, but I was going to be her consequence. I didn't have to wait long. By the time the weekend rolled around, the silence I'd carefully built cracked under the pressure Valora couldn't stand. It started subtle, an aunt tagging me in a vague status about loyalty and pride, a cousin posting some cryptic quote about burning bridges no one asked you to cross. I kept working. Monday came, and I was under a sink tightening a corroded flange when a notification lit up my phone. Just a preview. Can you believe what she did to her own sister? It wasn't even surprising. Valora had started spinning the story. In her version, I wasn't a provider. I was a saboteur. Jealous, bitter, out to destroy her big moment, because I couldn't handle her success. I didn't reply. I didn't comment. I didn't even delete the tag. I took a screenshot. Then, I saved it in a new folder I'd started that morning. Deflection Tactics. People like Valora don't own their choices. They just rebrand the fallout. Later that afternoon, I stopped by the public library to print out the forged form again. I wanted hard copies, in case things escalated. I knew Valora, and I knew the closer she got to being exposed, the messier she'd become. She didn't fight clean. She fought familiar. With guilt, with shame, with narrative. As I stood waiting by the printer, I got a message from Ramona. Zadie, Mom doesn't want me to say anything, but your mom took out a payday loan, transferred the money straight to Valora's account yesterday. I thought you should know. I stared at the screen. They would literally go into debt before acknowledging I'd ever held them up. I didn't respond. What was there to say? I left the library, dropped off tools at a client's house, and stopped by a cafe to collect myself before heading home. It was quiet inside, warm, with that soft smell of coffee and wood that somehow slows your breathing. I sat near the back and pulled out my notebook, jotting down dates, names, account entries, just keeping everything straight. That's when I saw him. Dorian. He was standing by the counter, reading something on his phone. He hadn't seen me yet, and I thought about ducking down. I didn't want to have a conversation that felt like cleaning up Valora's mess. But then he looked up. Our eyes met. To his credit, he didn't pretend not to know me. He walked over slowly, shoulders a little slumped, expression somewhere between apology and regret. Zadie, he said quietly. Dorian. He pulled out the chair across from me. Is it okay? I nodded once. I called the university, he said after a pause. I wanted to understand what was going on. They told me everything. I didn't say a word, just let the weight of his own discoveries settle in the air between us. She said it was all a misunderstanding, that you were overreacting. But after talking to the billing office and reading some of her old texts again, I realized I never really questioned what she told me about you. I still didn't speak. I wanted him to say it all himself. You paid for everything, he continued, almost to himself. The tuition, the bar prep, all of it. He looked down, then back at me. You're not the person she described, and I'm sorry for believing her. I finally exhaled. You deserve to know the truth. He nodded. Then, with a kind of tired finality, said, I moved out last night. He didn't ask for sympathy, and I didn't offer it. We just sat there for another minute, then he stood. Take care of yourself, Zadie. You too. That night, I got 3 voicemails in a row. The first was Valora. Angry, frantic. You told him, didn't you? You couldn't just stay quiet. You ruined everything. He left. Because of you. The second was Mom. I know things are tense, but airing this out with outsiders isn't the answer. Family matters should stay in the family. The third was Aunt Delia. I never thought you'd be the kind to bring someone down just to feel important. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, listening to all of it. Then I played Valora's message again. Not because I needed to hear it, but because I wanted to hear her say the words. You ruined everything, I whispered back to the empty room. No, Valora, you did that all on your own. I sat at the kitchen table well past midnight. The files were spread out like puzzle pieces I'd finally stopped trying to force together. My laptop screen dimmed on its own from inactivity, the glow fading to black, leaving me in the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of this old house settling. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt still. The truth was all there, printed and stacked neatly in front of me. Receipts, wire transfers, email confirmations, that forged signature Valora thought she could slip under the radar. And screenshots, dozens of them, capturing every social media post where she thanked our parents for their endless support. Carefully written, publicly presented lies. No need for confrontation. No speeches. I didn't want an apology. I didn't even want recognition anymore. I wanted closure. So I began assembling the final step. 3 identical manila envelopes. 1 for the university's legal office. 1 for Valora. 1 for Marla. Inside each, a copy of the fraudulent authorization form, with the mismatched signature circled in red ink. A cover letter, concise and direct. Evidence of all tuition payments from my account. A statement of disassociation, signed and dated. And a simple note clipped to Valora's. You knew better, and you did it anyway. By morning, I showered, dressed, and drove down to the university. The parking lot was quiet. Students were still on break. I walked into the admin building with the envelope tucked under my arm. The receptionist greeted me. I handed it over without a word. She opened her mouth, maybe to ask what it was, but I turned and left before she could. No drama, no performance, just delivery. On the way home, I stopped by the neighborhood mailbox. I slid the remaining 2 envelopes inside and stood there for a moment. It was overcast, the air heavy with spring moisture. A mockingbird perched on the wire above, watching me like it knew something I didn't. I didn't flinch. I didn't second guess. The truth didn't need defending anymore. Back at home, I made tea and sat by the window with my planner, sketching out a schedule for upcoming plumbing jobs. Saturday had 3 back-to-back appointments. Monday, I'd drive out to Broken Arrow for a stubborn drain line that kept backing up. Somewhere between my second sip and rechecking my mileage logs, my voicemail dinged. It was a university counselor. Hi, Ms. Callow. Just letting you know that we received your documentation. Thank you for providing such thorough clarity. We'll be moving forward with a formal review on our end. No further action needed from you at this time. That was it. No fanfare. Just a thank you and a closed door. I placed the phone down beside me, not touching it again for hours. By dusk, another voicemail came in. Valora. Her voice was raw. Not the shrieking tone I'd heard before. This one sounded hoarse, stretched thin. a mixture of desperation and blame. "You destroyed me. I hope you're happy." There was no follow-up, no breath behind it, just that one line. And then a click. I listened once, then deleted it. She always thought this was a battle, me against her image against my presence. But the truth was, I never wanted to win anything. I just wanted peace. She wanted to win a war I never even declared. She lost to the truth, not to me. She had nothing left to take from me, and I had nothing left to give her. 2 weeks passed, not quickly, not quietly, but with the kind of steady rhythm you only notice once you stop waiting for a storm. The text came on a Thursday morning. My phone was on the windowsill while I was cleaning out the back of the van, organizing fittings, tossing out old gloves, stacking toolboxes that had somehow multiplied over the years. It buzzed once, then stopped. I wiped my hands, picked it up. "Marla, we're still family. Please call." "Valora's in a bad place." I stared at the message for a full minute. There was no sting, just a weightless echo where pain used to live. I didn't reply. It wasn't indifference. It was detachment. The kind that comes after you've already bled out the part of yourself that used to ache for inclusion. The kind of peace you earn, not ask for. Once, I would have dropped everything to run toward that message. Maybe even tried to fix it. Patch something up. Be the strong one, like she always said I was. Now, I just set the phone down and went back to sorting copper elbows. That night, after dinner, I sat at the dining table with a blank piece of paper in front of me. No letterhead, no template, just a pen and some space I didn't owe anyone but myself. I started writing, not to Valora, not to Mom, to the version of me that stayed too long. That made excuses. That bought textbooks for someone who couldn't bother to say her name in public. "You were never too much," I wrote. "You were just trying too hard in the wrong places, and that's not your fault." My hand paused, pen hovering just above the paper. "They didn't see you," I added. "Not because you were invisible, but because they never looked past what they could use." I didn't sign it. I folded it neatly and tucked it in the back of my journal. Later that weekend, while looking for an old socket wrench, I stepped into the workshop. My eyes landed on a framed invoice nailed to the wall, a printout from 5 years ago. The first payment I ever made toward Valora's education. I pulled it down without ceremony. Back inside, I opened the storage bin labeled closed accounts and gently slid it in. No fire, no tearing, no big gesture, just a quiet, intentional end. Not everything needs to be forgiven, but it can be finished. A few days later, while I was redoing piping at a house across town, my neighbor, Joe, waved me down as I was unloading the van. "Hey, Zadie," he called. "You still do work for the Quinns?" I paused. "Why?" "They've been asking around. I think their upstairs tub's leaking again." I smiled politely, the kind of smile that ends a conversation. "I only fix what people want to keep working." He blinked. "Got it, just thought I'd check." I nodded, finished unloading, and headed toward the house. On the way home, I took the long route through the park. The wind had picked up just enough to move the trees, but not strong enough to bend them. I pulled over, got out, and walked along the gravel path with my hands in my pockets. There was a time I thought closure meant sitting across from someone who'd wronged you and hearing them say all the things you'd been waiting to hear. But it doesn't. Sometimes it's walking away without waiting for anyone to follow. Some things, once broken, are not meant to be repaired, but they can be left behind, gently. Before we close this story, let me share something with you, not as a narrator, but as a woman who's lived every second of it. I used to think being strong meant staying silent, that if I just gave a little more, helped one more time, stayed out of the way, I'd earn my place. I'd be valued. But what I've learned is this: silence doesn't always mean peace, and sacrifice, without recognition or respect, becomes self-erasure. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel. Speaking up doesn't make you disloyal. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to walk away from the role they've cast you in, especially when they've written you out of the script entirely. Maybe you've been the giver in your family. Maybe you've been the one carrying burdens that no one thanks you for, while others rewrite the story. If so, I hope my experience gives you permission to reclaim your name, your voice, your space. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose peace over people? Have you ever had to walk away not because you didn't care, but because you finally did? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story touched something in you, or share where you're watching from. It's always a joy to see how far our stories travel. And if you didn't connect with this video, let me know why. I'm always here to listen and grow with you. If this message resonated, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more real, raw, and healing stories that honor the strength in quiet women and the power of walking away with grace. Thanks for spending your time here with me. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong, and stay grounded.